Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today and for this workshop this week. My name is Tara Andringa, and I'm the Executive Director of Partners for Automated Vehicle Education, or PAVE. Many of you have probably never heard of PAVE before getting the invitation to this workshop, so we just wanted to really briefly tell you who we are. PAVE is a 501c3 nonprofit coalition, and our members are a wide range of organizations that include traditional automakers, startups, as well as nonprofit organizations, advocates for road safety, advocates for people with disabilities, and advocates for environmental sustainability. So we come from diverse backgrounds, but we are united by two beliefs. First, we believe that vehicle automation offers the potential to make our highways safer, more mobile, and more sustainable. That means fewer crashes and deaths. It means more mobility options for people who are underserved by our current system. And it means reduced congestion and pollution on our roads. Second, we believe that to reach that immense potential, we need to build knowledge, understanding, and trust of these technologies in the public. And we believe that this challenge of knowledge and trust is every bit as important as the huge engineering challenges that our members are working to overcome every day. It's not enough for the engineers to build perfect systems. In order to succeed, the public needs to understand and trust those systems. In other words, PAVE is a bet on the power of knowledge. We believe that if we can help people to know more about AVs and their potential, then we can help to build that safer, more mobile, and more sustainable future. PAVE first launched in January of 2019, and from the very start, we knew that public sector officials, all of you, were a key partnership for us. After all, the future of transportation lies in your hands. It's the local road engineers who are developing the infrastructure to support these technologies. It's the local law enforcement agencies who will enforce the new rules of the road for AVs. And it's local school administrators who will decide if these vehicles can transport our kids to our schools. Now, PAVE is not here to tell you the answers to those questions or the many other issues you'll face in the years ahead. What we are here to do is to make sure that you have the knowledge and facts that you need to help to make those choices for your communities. We're here to help you sort through what can be a confusing and jargon-intense realm so that you can focus on your priority, which is serving your communities. So today and tomorrow, we have presentations designed to help understand AVs better, both the technology that guides them and their potential to transform transportation. Also, since this is our very first public sector workshop, we are here to learn from you as well. What we'd love to hear is how we can make future sessions stronger and more useful. So we will be sending out lots of feedback forms and would really appreciate any comments you have on how we can make these sessions better. I also really want to thank Drive Ohio and the Transportation Research Center, who have been absolutely fantastic partners in building this workshop every single step of the way. We absolutely could not have done it without them. And I want to thank all of our PAVE members who have helped us to develop this curriculum. Most of all, I want to thank you for joining us in this conversation about the future of transportation. We are excited to start today with a fireside chat with some brilliant experts on AVs here in Ohio. We are excited to announce our moderator for today's fireside chat is Dr. Jack Marchbanks, who is the director of the Ohio Department of Transportation. Lieutenant Governor Husted, who had been scheduled to join us this morning, had an urgent schedule change, so he will give remarks tomorrow morning, and we are incredibly grateful to Director Marchbanks for joining us. And Director Marchbanks will be facilitating a conversation with Brett Rubinick, who is the president and CEO of the Transportation Research Center, and Finch Fulton, who is the Vice President of Policy and Strategy for Locomation. I welcome all of our guests on the fireside chat to turn on their video. And welcome, and thanks for joining us. And Director Marchbanks, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Tara. It's a pleasure to be with you today representing the DeWine-Houston administration. I would like to thank our friends at PAVE. Tara and her team have been great to work with. I'd also like to recognize the fine work of Drive Ohio. Howard Wood and his team have done a wonderful job planning this event in partnership with PAVE. Transportation, as we've been saying since the beginning of the DeWine-Houston administration, is in the midst of a transformation, the likes of which have not been seen since the invention of the automobile. Disruptive forces driven by advances in vehicle automation, connectivity, electrification, and sharing, ride sharing that is, are at the heart of the transformation. Environmental, public health, social equity, economic, transportation safety, and rural and urban mobility concerns are hastening the need for innovation in transportation services and infrastructure solutions. As companies and communities address these challenges, we in Ohio are ready and able to help. From the beginning of the DeWine Houston administration, we have been focused on innovative problem solving. We are engaging partners to develop and deploy solutions that will improve the quality of life, which is really what it's all about, the quality of life for all Ohioans. As automated vehicle technology matures, the benefits to Ohio's citizens in underserved communities, people with disabilities, the elderly, and residents in urban and rural communities will be significant and at front of mind as we move forward. And this effort led by Ohio, in Ohio, this effort has been led by Drive Ohio. Housed within the Ohio Department of Transportation, Drive Ohio works to bring automated transportation solutions to the state on the ground and in the air. Throughout this event, we will highlight ground projects that Drive Ohio manages, but I would like to mention their Fly Ohio initiative. Fly Ohio is focused on air mobility projects in the state, like the Air Force's Agility Prime program that is literally developing flying cars. All you boomers out there, you might still live to see what you saw on the Jetsons when you were growing up. This and other programs help differentiate Ohio from other states in the development of smart mobility solutions. As you can see, in Ohio, we take a holistic approach to advanced mobility. We believe this will be the key as companies begin to develop a ground and air automation strategy. The AV assets we possess in Ohio are second to none. The brainchild of Governor James Rowe, the Transportation Research Center is the largest independent automotive proving grounds in North America. And it houses the state-of-the-art Smart Center that is solely focused on automated and connected vehicle development and testing. Some of Drive Ohio's projects include the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor in Central Ohio, going from Honda down to Dublin, a U.S. Department of Transportation Automated Driving Systems grant testing AVs in Southeast rural Ohio, and a truck automation project along I-70 in Western Ohio. These programs will give us real-world data and experience as they develop and test AV systems for urban and rural environments. Over the next 2 days, you will learn about the Ohio AV development ecosystem. This ecosystem includes public, private, industry, community, and academic partners. As we say in Ohio, smart mobility is a team sport, and partnerships are key to success. We are witnessing the merging of technologies into a new network system that connects formerly siloed sectors of the economy through real-time data and communication. As these sectors converge, there will be opportunities for innovative states and communities to seize this momentum and secure an economic advantage for a generation to come. We in Ohio are ready to partner with innovative companies and institutions to safely develop, deploy, and manufacture AVs right here in the state of Ohio. We want you to join us as we develop the transportation system for the 21st century. As the Lieutenant Governor is fond of saying in many of his remarks to the public, Ohio is open for business. At this point, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Brett Rubinick and Fulton Finch, who will be joining me for the remainder of this opening session. They're calling it a fireside chat, but I'm calling it a screen glow chat because we're in front of the screen and we can warm our hands to the screen. Brett, you can go first and introduce yourself to the participants and tell us a little about the Transportation Research Center and the Smart Center. Brett?
Absolutely. Thank you, Director Marchbanks, and thank you to all of the participants who have dialed in for this morning's fireside chat. As Jack has mentioned several different times, we are in the throes of a transformation that we have not seen before. And it's what gets us out of bed in the morning. And we're fortunate to be in a place, the state of Ohio, where collaboration is the norm, as opposed to something that we're having to learn on the fly. The Transportation Research Center, as Jack mentioned, was originally envisioned in the late 60s by Governor Jim Rhodes. And we operate Transportation Research Center Incorporated, which is our 501c3 business today, the way we have for the past decades, assisting our clients to solve problems and address critical challenges to safely, effectively, and efficiently move goods and people throughout the world. And we do this by applying the most advanced leading edge expertise, and our team is passionate and dedicated and not found anywhere else. So that's about our people and what we do essentially. Back when Governor Rhodes envisioned the Transportation Research Center, there were 4,500 acres set aside, and the physical plant has continued to grow over the decades to meet today and tomorrow's challenges. And that's where our Smart Center comes in. Back in 2012, Ron Burton, who's our chief operating officer, worked with some of the federal folks to kind of look forward and crystal ball what would be required to efficiently and safely test automated and connected vehicles, hence the Smart Center. We broke ground in July of 2019, and this 540-acre campus can't be found anywhere else. Today, we work on our clients' imagined issues, if you will, and what they want to try and solve for. And we work hand in hand with them, really on groundbreaking research. All of it on the Smart Center. Speaking of collaboration a moment ago, of course, it'd be a failure of mine if I did not say that we need to thank the Department of Transportation, the Ohio Department of Transportation, Drive Ohio, Jobs Ohio, the Ohio State University, who all shared in this vision and realized that it was critical for not only the state of Ohio, but for industry, academia, and government to step forward and build this facility. Thanks, Jack.
Well, thank you, Brett. Brett, I'll always remember that day back in July 2019 when we gathered to cut the ribbon on the new Smart Center. It was very hot that day, but I didn't mind sweating because I knew we were looking at the future. We're very proud of that collaboration. Mr. Finch Fulton, can you please introduce yourself to our participants and tell us a little bit about Locomation?
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much, Director. And it's a pleasure to get to talk with you. And I'm, honored to be able to join this screen with you as well. So again, my name is Finch Fulton. I'm now the Vice President of Policy and Strategy at Locomation, which is locomotion plus automation. But previously, I was at the U.S. Department of Transportation as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Policy. And I feel a little bit like Forrest Gump working with TRC because they keep showing up, and the leadership of Ohio keeps showing up in different projects and working with the U.S. Department of Transportation in different ways. And now Locomation is getting to benefit from these relationships and all of the good work that's happening in Ohio. I remember going with Secretary Chow, the leadership of TRC, Senator Portman, and officials from the Ohio Department of Transportation to visit the TRC in one of Secretary Chow's first trips domestically when she became secretary. So we got to hear about all these great plans and all the wonderful things that TRC said they were going to do, but now that's become a reality. And it's fascinating and it's interesting and it's vitally important for industry because the partnerships that go into that, the partnerships that Dr. Marchbanks brought up, that is what makes Ohio a center for innovation. I think one of the best things for the country is the way Ohio competes to beat Michigan in the development of these technologies, you might say. But everyone benefits from this because this is American innovation, and it matters because you're bringing together the experts. You're creating this ecosystem for all of us to learn together, to make sure that we're prioritizing safety, to make sure we can bring about the benefits of this technology to everybody. And Ohio's fantastic at this. Not only issues or opportunities like the Smart Belt deployment, where, Ohio brought together an opportunity for Locomation. In this case, this is before I was at Locomation, to do a multi-state demonstration. And things like this are important because as everybody asks these questions about, well, how will we handle these automated trucking systems or automated vehicles? Figuring out who does what and who's in charge of what, and even what piece of paper to sign, how to give this data, what do you need, what data do you need and why? these are questions that sound silly, but unless you do what Ohio is doing, you don't know the answers. And when you don't know the answers and the public sees that, even if it's something that is not related to safety, they lose confidence in the deployments and they lose confidence in the technology. So all of the work that Ohio's done and all of the work with the U.S. Department of Transportation, making sure that all the roles and the different pieces of government in the safe deployment of this technology and the continued work that they're doing with industry to inform the entire ecosystem is critical for all of our futures and the future of this technology. So I'm thrilled to be here today, and I'm thrilled to get to talk through, every hat I've worn in getting to work with TRC and the leadership of Ohio. So thanks for having me.
All right, thank you, Fulton. We're excited. We're really excited to partner with your team. And again, the recent deployment of the Smart Belt Coalition's truck CAV project was fantastic. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention the Ohio Turnpike and Infrastructure Commission, which helped us on that project. And as you mentioned, we are working and leading here in the Midwest. It has to be a collaborative team effort. It has to be something that involves not just Ohio, but our industry, our academic partners, and our neighboring states. We in the Midwest and the Great Lakes have a great partnership. One thing that I just wanted to add that many of you may not know about is that the state of Ohio, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Indiana, and Michigan are working together with Canada to make sure that we're ready, that our state is ready, all of our states are ready, and all of our states will benefit when the Gordie Howe International Bridge opens in 2024, 2025, because this is something that's going to supercharge logistics, and I think will accelerate CAV trucking. So with that said, let's get to a few questions. Brett, well, the first one's for you. We know that by your rule book, you have to be protective of the work that goes on at TRC. You have companies that are testing and they have proprietary information that they want to keep to themselves for obvious competitive reasons. But how do you help companies develop AV technology at the Smart Center?
Yeah, throughout our history, because we're an independent 501c3, we work, as I said, across the pillars of government, industry, and academia. And all of those pillars require confidentiality around certain projects. We're fortunate in that some of our clients, like Locomation, are happy to talk about the work that we do together. But in terms of how we get it done, it comes back to our people. And as I said, we have a number of experienced operators in this space, from technicians to research scientists who have spent their careers assisting, whether in the past it was doing standardized testing off of federal motor vehicle safety standards. And today we're working collaboratively, kind of hand in hand, side by side with our clients as they imagine tests that they would like to run. And then we work with them to figure out how we can fulfill those requests. So it might be something simple related to lane keeping. It might be something more advanced where a client says, we're not quite sure how to build the physical test to mirror or to physically experience what our simulation says is going to occur. So it's a deep relationship, and we really pride ourselves on working, and thank you for the compliment, Finch. We pride ourselves on working with each of our individual clients to satisfy their needs directly, and no 2 days today are the same. They're all very different, and the tests are very different as well.
And if I can actually jump in, because you mentioned Locomation, the work that we are doing. So we have just started our partnership at TRC. So we are physically there. I think they're actually in the process of physically moving trucks there now and setting up the building and everything. But we're going to be testing at the Transportation Research Center out there in Ohio. And it's interesting because, if you talk about the work that PAVE does to make sure that there's transparency and people understand what's going on, if you look at the way that the Department of Transportation is trying to prove the safety of these systems with the different standards that are in place today and the ones that are still being developed, Locomation it's odd thing to say it's thrilling to get to work on standards, but it's really thrilling to all these standards that the U.S. Department of Transportation thinks are part of the future of proving safety of these technologies. We're going to be testing out these standards, meeting these standards, and in some cases, on some standards, helping develop them at the TRC. And we're going to use this process to inform our voluntary safety assessments, which is important to providing that information to the public, how we're approaching safety, how we're proving safety. And we're going to be putting all of our demonstrations on the AV test platform that's set up by the government so that people can see what sort of testing is happening, where it's happening, and how these technologies are developing, so they can get that comfort and have confidence in the way this technology is being developed and deployed. So, bringing together the work of PAVE and the work of TRC, somehow, again, the Forrest Gump metaphor, I get to see all these things happen together, and this is where it's happening, at TRC in Ohio. So it's really, as thrilling as standards development can be, it's very thrilling to get to work with you all on this.
Well, and actually, and Finch, you jumping in like that allows me now to kind of take the next step, because you spoke first, and we've been fortunate in that over history, we've worked on everything from seatbelts and ABS to airbags and every safety innovation that's come along. And you mentioned kind of the platform for going forward. We're looking forward to being there every day, every step of the way as these new standards come into existence.
Finch and Brett, since we're talking about this and the fact that we're doing, this great work is being done here by Locomation and at the TRC, what role do you ultimately see state and local government playing as we develop and set these standards, as we set, the infrastructure standards, interoperability? Should government wait, or should they, step in somewhere in the process? Finch, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, and it's a great question. And frankly, it's the question that people have, the most concern about. There's this perception that because we haven't finished the work, that there are no rules in place. Mm-hmm. There absolutely are. There's rules at the federal level that ensure safety and, pull vehicles off the road if something happens, or in many cases, as has proven in the last few years before things happen, there's the role of the states, and there's the role of localities. So licensing a vehicle, licensing the sort of operations that can happen, making sure the drivers are trained appropriately. And even some things that, as we develop and as, the drivers become the machines and so on, there's still going to be lots of rules in place for how these technologies are deployed. You're not going to want to submit a petition to the federal government to change a speed limit in your neighborhood. We're not talking about changing any crazy rules like that. But that's why it's important for people to understand, how these things work together, how all these pieces of government work together, and to make sure that as we develop this technology, that people have confidence that, if something's unsafe, it'll be pulled from the road, and that all of the work can be done leading into it. So yes, the government needs to set standards. Yes, we need to figure out the answers, but we have to work together to get there and to make sure people understand all the steps it takes to get there. That's what gives people confidence when they actually see these deployments, when they actually understand that the government's working with industry and that industry is working with government on the deployments. So that's part of the future, and the government has a big role in that.
Well, thanks, Finch.
And Jack, if I could just jump in and kind of follow on that, I think that was really the great center post or pillar about the launch of Drive Ohio. Is it really, I think somebody mentioned earlier when we were chatting that we're open for business, and Drive Ohio gave us that opportunity. Not only the strategic kind of think tank portion of what does Ohio's position need to be to assist companies like Locomation and others as they try and advance their technologies, but how do we manage workforce development? Because the workforce is going to change radically with all of these technologies. That's part of Drive Ohio. How do we work across state agencies when work needs to be done, as new companies say, we want to come into Ohio to develop this technology and to work. And so the kind of centerpiece of it all, I mentioned it before, is collaboration, something that we do very well here in Ohio, whether we're talking about working with ODOT and developing the 33 corridor, whether we're talking about working in Columbus with the partnership on Columbus, Smart Columbus, whether we're talking about going north and working with Farzan up at the Ohio Turnpike. It was really a critical step to launch and then foster Drive Ohio so that Ohio could take the next steps alongside our corporate and industry partners.
Thanks for that, Brett. And Finch, Brett, I'm going to ask a question that's not on the script, but selfish question because
wait, there's a script?
No, there's no script. No script. There's no spoon either. But the script is tossed out because this is an actual fireside chat. What I call a screen glow chat. When we talk about infrastructure stewards, I was just off on a call with all 50 state DOT CEOs last Thursday. It's called the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. And we also have Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia. So 52 CEOs. And one of the questions that came to mind is, how do we make sure that infrastructure is ready? Are we going to have to change pavement design? Should we have EV charging stations at key areas in the hard infrastructure as we move forward? We're talking about the vehicles that you and the trucks that are being developed by Locomation and all the technology around that. But if you're dealing with a road that was designed according to 1962 federal highway standards, that doesn't seem like that's going to help us. So what would you recommend to people like me and of course, let's be selfish, in Smart Belt? What would you recommend to Yasmin Gramian? What would you recommend to Joe McGinnis? What would you recommend to Paula Jegba and Jack Marchbanks and Jim Gray? What should we be doing to make sure our roadways are ready for the future?
Well, I can jump in first there because frankly, there's two different answers. One is if industry thinks that they're going to be able to dictate what infrastructure needs to be in place just for our technology, we're going to be waiting a long time for the nation to invest in something that only works for us. So we have to make our technology work with what works best for people. And so, we do have a historic opportunity for the nation to invest in its infrastructure now. That's a bipartisan thing. We need to invest in America's infrastructure. What do automated trucks need? We need clear lanes. We need roads in good conditions. We need clear signage. But it also, helps when you have some of these connectivity demonstrations like Ohio's been investing in. It helps with the efficiency of the system. We don't rely on it, but it does make things more efficient. It can help truck drivers get to their parking spots so that they reduce congestion and can get to a safe place. It can help them plan their routes. It can help people get through traffic more quickly. We not only have an opportunity to maintain the level of infrastructure that people expect, but we can use this opportunity to make the entire freight ecosystem more efficient. And while Locomation's, agnostic in terms of the fuel that the truck burns, because we can handle gas, we can handle hydrogen, we can handle electric. But the Department of Energy says that for Class 8 trucks, electric vehicle technology probably won't be there for another decade, probably around 2032. But certainly, the work that Ohio is doing through the Columbus Smart City deployment, and through some of the other deployments on the charging stations and the smart parking systems and all of these technologies so that people can plan their days and utilize that puts you guys in the head start position competitively across the country as we look at the government investing in this technology and focusing on emissions and focusing on the impacts of climate change. Ohio's in a good position there. And so while some of this doesn't impact automated trucks yet, it doesn't mean it doesn't impact the entire ecosystem.
Well, thanks, Finch. And Brett, we're running short on time, so I want to give you the opportunity to look into the future for us. Where do you see AV technology going in the next 2 to 5 years?
As I pull out my crystal ball, so we over the last several years have watched as parties have taken, I'll call them parallel but different paths to get to what I believe is the same answer, which is a safer, smarter, cleaner future. And I think that we're going to continue to see rapid development, fortunately, continue to see rapid development along those lines, because really across the board, regardless of which of those pillars we're talking about, it's a bit of a holy grail for society in general, whether we're talking about safety for each and every one of us, or we're talking about solving social equity issues. So I'm extremely optimistic because TRC sits at an interesting intersection with all of our stakeholders and has been fortunately able to actively participate as they have been advancing their individual causes. And what we're seeing is great momentum and great development in the future. Going back to what Finch was just commenting on, though, it does require active listening, partnership, and collaboration for us to realize the great promise that these initiatives open up.
Thank you, Brett. And we want to respect everyone's time. So thank you, Finch. Thank you, Brett, for this really informative exchange. And I look forward to working with you as the director of the Ohio Department of Transportation, of course, in tandem with Drive Ohio, Fly Ohio. You're great partners, and the future is very bright, as you mentioned, Brett. Tara, back to you.
Thank you so much, Director Marchbanks, and thank you to Brett and Finch for that great conversation. We really appreciate all of your time today. And it's exciting to see how all these pieces, the public sector and the private sector and a nonprofit, all work together in this ecosystem to push all this forward. So many, many thanks for your time.